like checking in, pausing once in a while and be like, we are trying to build a house. This one's a little bit more tangible, but there's a house and we want to build it in a certain amount of time. We've gotten really good at realizing that's not necessarily as important as what are we learning along the way, and what are the great opportunities that we're providing individually and as a family, maybe even beyond that.
You always hear people like as if it has to be the path. Like, no, you got to go through the tears and you have to fight them, but they'll thank you later. I'm like, I mean, I guess that's an option, but like, no, we didn't do that.
Yeah.
Like, if we believe these are beautiful tools for truth seeking, that they'll need reading, writing, and arithmetic for life, and that it's such a beautiful tool, and we really value those tools ourselves, and they see us value those tools, why would they not in their own way, if given the right fertile ground, why wouldn't they go after those things, even the hard ones?
As people chase results, they'll try to do the bare minimum to achieve a result, and they're cheating themselves some of that journey.
What if I told you that a story could teach your child more history, science, math, and literature than a year of textbooks? Welcome to the Story Schooling Podcast. I'm Angel Selden, author of Curiouser.
And I'm Sandy Fouts, co-founder of Wonderwell Learning.
How old is your youngest right now?
He's 8. Yeah.
8.
So our oldest is 23 and the youngest is 8. We have 7 children.
7 children, 5 boys, 2 girls. 3 are moved out of the house. So we have 4 in the house now. And we have our oldest in the house now is a girl and 3 boys. Our youngest is 8.
Yeah.
So another thing we talk about a lot is like real work. And you guys put that to practice, more than I've ever seen is like, I have my kids like cook and do, real things around the house instead of,
Grown-up experiences versus creating a kid version of that is just inviting them to either shadow and watch you doing real things, and then eventually when they're ready to do those things with you, start helping out in small ways and then taking over more. Yeah.
So what does that look like for you guys as far as that real work when you have young ones? And I mean, I watched you with little babies in your journey from the little bit that I knew you. And so as you've grown through these years with kids growing up in this experience, how is that real work translated with little kids along the way?
Yeah, I know Angel and I were talking off camera about that book, The Continuum Concept. It's a good one. I haven't ever read it, but it's just this idea of like living life together. And I feel like we've tried to embrace that, like just living life with the kids since they're little, and maybe not making versions of something for them to do to the side or to entertain them, but they can find their own entertainment. I can support them in that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one system, and this is not like the way, but for us with 7 kids, one nice thing is we need the help. We can't scale to just take care of everything. We need the help. So then there's a team kind of mindset that you're building into the family culture. One thing that we've done with older kids especially is like any one system in the home, like chore in the home tends to be pretty big. So laundry is a big ordeal and dishes is a big ordeal and cooking is a big ordeal at this scale. So we end up assigning them a month at dishes or a month at this. And that's even the 2 youngest ones. They might do dishes together or laundry together, but they are in charge of that. And now they own that fully. And we will help them when they don't know how to do it until they can. And then they own that project fully. And part of that is to build in you have a responsibility. It gets old after a while, but you have to do it anyway. Like you need to learn that as a human being, that there's lots of stuff that you can do it in a very, I don't know, painful, grudging way, or you can figure out a fun way to do it. Like there's a process and all that. We don't have them own it long enough to where like it gets really bad, but like these 1 month, sometimes 2 month stints. We have chickens, so we have somebody taking care of that. And then of course, I totally agree with when they're younger, our 8-year-old, he just told us, he's like, I want to like be able to cook a whole meal. We didn't decide some different meal than our standard meals. And we're slowly teaching him up that he'll be able to cook one of these simple meals for us and prepare it and the whole 9 yards.
He
So
can, but he wants to do more of them. Yeah.
he wants to do more of them. Right. So anyway, that's a how, but the principle of it is, that flitting. When they're younger, they come and you can scramble the eggs with me right now. And then later, next thing they know, they're pouring it onto the griddle, or they're, all the different parts. They learn it over time. It's not always in the now thing. So that's a couple of the ways that we also challenge a lot of the systems just in general, that what works in general. So for instance, our laundry, We do a large family laundry room that is where all of our clothes are, instead of having to take it to all the different dressers throughout the house.
We have found some systems that are very helpful to us. One would be the family closet. Has been was life changing. I don't think I would have had 2 more kids. That was or 3 more, I guess. When I was pregnant with or thinking about 5th, I think is when some of those systems, because I'm not naturally, I'm definitely not type A. I'm like type Z. I'm like the opposite of type A. So I'm not naturally organized of mind, and I don't necessarily make systems naturally at all. I'm I'm more the artistic creative side, which has its ups, but also if you have to make things function in a house, it's kind of necessary to learn some of those things. At least with a large family, it seemed pretty necessary, or you would drown in laundry and dishes and stuff, So so we have some systems that were helpful to us, but
anyway,
yeah.
Any other follow-on questions to that question?
Yeah. Did we answer?
No, that was great. I wanted to make a connection between what you were talking about with the cooking and how one day they might come and just want to whisk the raw eggs together. Then maybe another day they're helping to pour it on the griddle. And I just wanted to make a connection to another interview we did with the couple who was talking about music and teaching their kids music and piano. And they have a son who his dad played organ in church and still does. And his son would just sit there at the bench with him at first and watch him because he was curious about organ, wanted to learn how to play eventually. Then he was turning the pages. Then he was pulling out stops. Then he started playing the right hand. And this is without any formal lessons. He was just kind of dabbling in it. But the church congregation needed music, and and there's nothing wrong with recitals either. But talk about next level. We need somebody to play piano. In a piano recital, you could say if one kid didn't show up, they would just skip that kid and go to the next kid. But if you didn't show up to play organ for the congregation, they would have to find somebody else to take your place. So that just makes that's next level real, right? Yeah. I like making connections between all the interviews that we do, to find these common principles.
Is this a good time to bring up the metal melting? Oh. So
Yeah.
You have the different levels, right? You have the 8-year-old that wants to learn to take on more of the meals. He's done some things. He wants to take to the next level. So Henry, when he was, 13-ish, 14-ish, he was just in this little bit of a funk. He was learning, he was reading. There's all this other things where there was something missing. And I was like, well, what do you want to do? I went the route. It was kind of a little bit different route. I'd been taught match, latch, and lead. So if they have a hobby, as a mentor, you can match what the interests of their hobby to some level. Then you latch onto it because everything that anybody's deeply interested in has cores of learning in it. And then you lead them into some of the learning that they need. So the idea here, I did the opposite. I was like, what's something you're really interested in? What's something you're really passionate about? And he was like, well, I'd seen some videos of this guy and he does aluminum melting and he does metal casting, basically. I was like, all right, let's try it. He looked at me, he was like, what? I was like, let's try it. Let's figure it out. And so I went to teach him, let's figure it out, right? Don't just go watch life. Let's go do it in real life. Now, I did find out later that was probably the most dangerous of the 3 hobbies we ended up doing.
With metal.
With metal.
The casting and melting is more dangerous than bending it in the forge.
Right. So
but he didn't know that.
But we went from, there was this thing that we were doing together. And I want to draw a little bit of a different parallel. Meeting him where he is at, I got to push him a little further as a 13, 14-year-old out of his...
really needing to push it.
He was intrinsically interested in it. Yeah. There were some things I could see in the moment that he just needed. The core of it was he needed to build some self-confidence in himself and that he was capable and he was competent in things and he could figure things out on his own, because that's what the next level, next 4 or 5 years, he better have a strong, figure it out type of a skill set in his life. And so in the moment, I would drive certain things and I would do the right research and get the right tools and know the process enough that we would be safe enough. But then I would show it to him and then have him do it. If he was nervous about doing that next step, we'd walk through it a few times.
But you also went to you found local blacksmiths.
Well, that's later.
And we went over, you went to get around them a little bit so he could see
so when
other people doing it.
Started doing the metal melting, then we got into, he was like, I want to make knives. So we got into blacksmithing. So we found a guy that had a course. We went together for 2 different courses that we got together doing that. And I could definitely see he started to do it more on his own. I mean, I'm working 40, 50 hours a week. And I wanted to turn it over where he felt comfortable going and doing it on his own when he needed to. And so basically the arc of we went from metal melting, metal casting to blacksmithing to leatherworking as well. They all fit together in different ways.
When you make a knife, then you need a sheath. And so he's like, oh, we need a sheath. So then they looked into leatherworking because they needed to make a sheath for the knife.
Yeah.
But then we found local people who were into leatherworking or had leather businesses. So we went to visit them and kind of like get into the vernacular. And there's like a club, any interest you have, you can find
a whole world.
Even random things you think there's no way, but there's probably a whole world of that thing, even if it's super niche.
I remember we're very social, so we set up 2 blacksmithing stations to be together because I knew he would want to invite friends and teach them as well.
He has over the years now done that.
Yeah, he has. And what's cool is you fast forward now even more years, and Zane, who's 13, 14, I just taught him some blacksmithing, and he just taught his friend how to make a knife out of a railroad spike recently. So it's paying forward. But back to Henry, the cool part was to watch him. At one point, he even paused me. He says, Dad, I may not be a blacksmith like as a career. I was like, it's not why we're doing this, right? Like, he was worried I was like putting too much time and energy as if I was like forcing some long-term career on him. And I was like, no. And we had this deeper conversation. I was like, what have you learned over this? What's the arc? Remember where you were at? Where are you at now? And they got to the deeper parts of like, it wasn't about it. There was learning regardless of the thing. That's why I could ask him, what are you interested in? Start with that passion and then teach the self-confidence. And when you're feeling anxious, how do you deal with that when you're about to do something with 2,000 degree metal, right? Like, and learning those principles and how they apply to lots of parts of life, not just blacksmithing.
Henry and now Zane too have invited, they'd be like, there's a kid that I think they notice that it can be a good tool to like help people that maybe are needing to connect, find something they're interested in. They've invited over dads and sons. Actually, a few dads have come to him and been like, could I come over? Could we do that sometime with my son? I feel like he could use some kind of, I think because it's so kinetic and it's so working with an element. So there's something, again, almost like the building the house, a little maybe primal because you're working with those
fire and metal and there's a lot of kinetic energy of hammering. There's an exercise aspect to it and you're making something permanent. It doesn't even have to look that great. You're like, man, I made this. I made this. That was raw metal. Now it's a butter knife or a hook or whatever it is. So.
I want to make a knife when I come visit you.
Okay.
We got 2 stations.
With my 9-year-old. Okay.
If you want, there's an old railroad track behind the property, but it's not there anymore. But you can, if you hunt around, find old spikes from the old track. And that's what they've been making the knives from.
Yay. So they're
it's historical because that historical isn't there anymore. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah. I feel like you have a question, Sandy. I don't know why, but I'm feeling like you have another.
I'm just thinking about how, like, this is a long-term project that you guys are working on. And your kids who have been in and they've started it, but then they've kind of moved on. Like, how do they feel about not being there in the end?
You should ask them. That is like my biggest worry because, we'll see. I don't know.
Well, there's multiple facets there because Henry was a big part of building it.
He did he did a lot of the cottage before he went on his mission.
If we're going to be really real, we try to be really real and grounded. I don't think he's too happy that it's not finished too, because now he's coming back and he's probably going to be working on it again.
No,
there's mixed emotions. I'm joking a little bit. There's mixed emotions. He is excited, but he's also like, it would have been kind of cool to come home and it's finished and I'm living in it now.
Well, I don't know. I've talked with he's serving a mission for our church and he's in another country. He's in Brazil. And so, but often if we're over there, he's like, oh, take me over there. Take pictures. I want to show this companion that they get in companionships of, they have another missionary with them. And that changes who that missionary companion is. And so he's often like, well, get a video because I want to show them all. So I can see he's super excited about it and that he was part of it. But I wonder because they're not getting to live in it. And I did want them to live in it. This is that balance that I'm trying to figure out, that we're going slow because we don't want to go too fast and be over there working all the time. It would be too much. They have other things they're wanting to do in life and we're supporting them in all their other things. But so hopefully just that their grandkids get to come back to it and I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. It's still, it's inspiring.
Yeah.
I mean, like my parents had this dream and they were curious about something and they wanted to try it. And it seems so impossible to most people. And yet they're just doing it. They're living the life they want to live. And just trying new things. They're not afraid, and they're going out of their comfort zone. Yeah. That's so inspiring.
Well, and one of our adult children, so Henry, it always still talks about the sailboat. Like, he's still like, I actually think I'm going to do that. We're like, we'll do it. That'd be awesome. So, maybe sometimes we start the inspiration and the spark and we support, but hopefully they can see why we didn't finish that or whatever. Hopefully they don't get a bad taste in their mouth. And then later they can pick up that spark and keep going with it or use it in some other way.
I told him he needs to have a guest cabin, though.
Yeah, because we're like, well, we didn't do the boat, so we want to come visit,
and then you don't have to fix it up.
Yeah,
true. Yeah, true. So we'll see, I guess. We haven't done too much adult parenting. We're finding that's a whole different skill and different mentorship model that changes. And then with grandkids, we don't have grandkids yet. So how will that look? How can we be the best mentors, support them in a good way, but not be a hindrance too? So yeah, we're still learning. That will be quite the journey. And it is quite the journey already. So yeah. You'll have to give us tips if you guys are ahead of us on that.
That was a good question.
Tips on what? Mentoring adult kids?
Adult parenting, because it's a different thing. Adult grandparent mentoring, too.
My adult mentoring is be their cheerleader until they ask you for anything. Like, don't say anything. I'm sure that's what you do, too, right? Until they ask you questions. And then it's, well, here's what I've found works for me or doesn't work for me. But it's never, here's what you should do.
Exactly.
Or it's suggesting books. Like, when you guys decide it's time to have kids, I have a list, and here's the order you should read these books.
Yeah, we're trying to check our unsolicited advice and our enthusiasm, even when they do ask advice, to not like to just give them like a little what they asked for, and not be like, like fire hydrant. Because birth is a passion and always has been of mine. Yeah, I recently had a adult child who's married. They kind of asked for some, they're not pregnant, but they wanted to ask for some books. And I had found myself being like, I was trying to check my like, oh, I'm so excited. And here's the, I was like, okay, here's a couple books. I was like trying to be calm, And I know he knows I was trying to be calm. He could tell, but
that he made your day by asking you about birth.
Yeah, like, there have been times when my husband and I are like, the instant will happen, and inside we're both saying, "Be cool, just be cool." Yeah. And as soon as that kid leaves the room, then all of the our real feelings can explode out. So you don't scare him.
And I'll tell you what's interesting. I mean, I coach full time. I coach leaders full time. It's way easier doing it in that profession. My own kid comes along and wants to be mentored by me or something. I'm like, okay, stay calm.
Just give them a little bit, enough to send them on a journey. Just give something so they go on their own journey, but not give it to them. Yeah.
Right.
I would say, so my adult parenting method has simply been to listen. I found that's what my kids need more than anything. They may ask a question, but they may not even really want advice. But the more that they talk and the more that they have somebody to hear, and as they puzzle it out themselves, and often they answer their own questions or they figure it out. And tiny little, I may give little bit of either questions or just push them a little farther to think a little bit about what they're talking about, but just allowing them to talk, and you just listen and ask questions sparingly. And then
what have you tried? What are your ideas? Yeah. What would you like to try next? You really often don't even need to give any advice. That's true. Which I would say even for teenagers, even for kids living at home, right?
Yep, it's the same.
So I would like to bring this full circle with the Earthen home. I'd like to tie it back into principles that we keep revisiting on this podcast. And so we've talked a lot about the different types of learning that have happened through this Earthen home, the physical, the character development, the intellectual development, and the social relationships that has had an incredible strengthening effect on. We've also talked about another principle we have is slow down. And you said you found this sweet spot of you don't want it to go too slow because then it's not gratifying and you're not seeing enough progress, and you do want to get it done in relatively near future, but you don't want to push it too hard because then they burn out. It's not fun anymore and you lose some of those gains from the project.
Yeah. Utilizing it like a tool for even intellectual things like studying classics and having discussions. Yeah, we did talk about that.
Connected directly to the Earthen home then. You mean listening to the audiobooks while you're working?
Right,
or the books that you read about the Earthen home, or both?
No.
Oh, okay.
Mostly that we're doing some of the books on our list that we wanted to do anyway, or that they wanted to do, but we'll do it audio while we're building, and organically a lot of discussions come up either about the books or when we have often we'll purposely have it quiet too. We don't always have music or a book on. There is an art to not having background things on. There's an art to having silence because that creating that void on purpose, especially that void in nature, is really ideal for these discussions that just come up, that's been on their mind, something that they've been thinking about. So we have these voids built in on purpose that kind of these slow rhythms and slow voids that allow those organic discussions to come up and something they've been thinking about or whatever. So that has been part of the Earthen build, and that has been intentional because it is out in nature, because it is often quiet, and there can be monotony into putting plasters onto the wall and something almost therapeutic about it's like snapping beans on the front porch that they used to have more in the aggregate age. We have more of that. Maybe now you could do that with dishes or something that needs to get done but doesn't take a lot of necessarily critical thought, but you can do alongside each other, and maybe purposely not put the music or the audiobook on sometimes, and let hang a silence that allows.
So through the silence, they do more pondering, and then through the pondering, they get to a point. It's a space to ask questions and start discussion.
Yeah, I have noticed with the Earthen build, some of the times there'll be a job somebody will go off and do, and they'll just be sitting there. I can see that they're pondering something, but as they're kind of doing something with their hands and touching the earth, and there's something. It's kind of like a fire does it naturally. You'll watch people around a fire, and they will naturally gaze into it and kind of think and ponder and have deep thoughts about whatever. So I think there is something to that. Yeah.
I have read actually research that shows there is power in more than even just sitting there and meditating and doing nothing. If you're doing some type of manual labor that doesn't require a lot of concentration, that it frees your mind up for inspiration, new ideas, new connections made in the brain. Like you said, reflecting on things that you have been learning in a more intense way, this frees your mind up to start digesting that information and making new connections. So that's beautiful. Dana, you were telling me about in your coaching business, when we shift our focus away from results, and you mentioned specifically trust. Connect that to the Earthen home, and how do you focus on process and not results? And how have you seen better results from focusing on process and not results? Or with education in general, instead of focusing on the process of your education versus the results of that education.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think oftentimes when you chase a result, you get frustrated if it's not exactly what you were going for, versus putting the work in anything and then enjoying the result that comes from it.
Like the journey, kind of
right. So
going with the journey.
If you need to allow for the results to happen based off the effort. The other thing I've noticed is that as people chase results, they'll try to do the bare minimum to achieve a result, and they're cheating themselves some of that journey that then produces a result that it's a little bit, it's almost, I'm going to use a strong language, but it's almost arrogant for us to believe that we can create in our mind what the end result will be for sure, as if we know exactly. The world's way more dynamic than that. And on the other side, we should be looking for, call it goal approximation, right? The result, the end, the vision that we have for a thing should be general, and then hard work and allowing for the adjustments and better paths or whatever comes up in the process that then produces oftentimes even better result than what the end result was.
Leaving space for
that you originally had created. I think a lot of this, checking in, pausing once in a while and be we are trying to build a house. This one's a little bit more tangible, but there's a house and we want to build it in a certain amount of time. We've gotten really good at realizing that's not necessarily as important as what are we learning along the way. And what are the great opportunities that we're providing individually and as a family, maybe even beyond that? People come, like she said, youth that are a little bit home too much, and a parent's hey, can they come and try? Yeah, come try for an hour or two. And all of a sudden they like it, or they don't. At the same time, it broke that process. Anyway, I do think there's over fixation of the result itself. And there's also a second kind of added topic there is the 10X mindset. Often we over
like Jim Collins.
like you don't even question the process. If you're only looking at the result, you'll do that bare minimum, where if you stopped and said, well, let's improve the process, let's improve the connection, let's improve the trust on a team, that then enables where you may get 10x the results. And so there's like this back and forth. You can say, well, what could I do to 10x the result? Then it forces you to look at the process and say, okay, we need to question all the parts and be curious. I like to be curious. My wife is a great example of that. Be curious about every part of the process that's already there. And you might even discover processes you're just doing innately that now you need to do something different. And then all of a sudden you get a whole other more results of what you were hoping for in the first place. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Well, and it made me realize, too, if you guys were just focused on results, you'd get that pre-made, you'd buy those trusses and get the plastic roof, or, or just hire somebody to build your earthen home. But because you're focused on process, like you're curious about the process. And so you're like, this is going to take longer. It's going to be a lot of hard work, but we care more about the process of building the home than we do about just having the home, the end result of the home.
And I think even as we've done the cottage so far, like there's I can plan as much as I can plan. And I think that's good to do your homework and to do that. But then there's a place where you have to let go. Everything's like a birth analogy in my mind. I could think of a birth analogy right now, but it's really good to educate yourself. And that helps feed inspiration for sure. Education does. But then there's a space to let go all of that and allow the journey and allow the ride to where that goes. So I think they're both important. But yeah, as we're doing the cottage, it's just clearly like there's things I've planned. And then there's like just little things that like it's organically becoming its own. Same with writing a book, especially creative processes. Artists will often tell you, like a carver of wood or a sculptor, they'll say, they can see that something wants to get out of that piece of wood. They see that wood. Instead of they're putting this into it, they're more like, I see that there's something inside. I'm going to help it out. And as they are shaving away the wood, surprising things come out that they were not. Or people writing a story. My daughter's an author and has written several books. And she's like, my characters just take me on this. I wasn't expecting. I had an idea I had planned out, but there's definitely things coming up and the characters are doing things that I wasn't planning. And so she's allowing that space for that flow to happen and to take you to a new place that you didn't expect. So
it's more like she's discovering the story than creating it. I'll mention 2 more principles, and if you want to speak to one or either of them, that's great. Let them figure it out for themselves and make mistakes and take risks. Would you like to speak to that at all? Have there been opportunities for them to kind of figure out the process, figure things out for themselves and fail and try again and again?
I'll start with a recent experience with Zane in blacksmithing. I've had where I've brought over whole youth groups of 12 to 14-year-old boys to come make a hook. And I have this whole process of safety and then process and trying to teach them all the different parts. Recently, my 13-year-old Zane, he was like, hey, I'd love my friend to come over and we want to blacksmith. But he was like, can we just go straight to making a knife out of a railroad spike? Which is kind of like, I'm like, let's start here. But like, it reminded me, I was like, well, paused and said, what would it take for me to feel comfortable for him to do that and take that risk? And honestly, it sounded like he just wanted him and his other 14-year-old friend out there blacksmithing, and I was like, well, I want to start the forge. That's a major safety thing. I want to do some basic safety stuff with them. But like at that point, do I really need to stand there and hover over them? They know the safety. At the end of the day, they know that if I touch myself with 2,000-degree metal, I'm going to burn myself. There's some natural consequences. They're going to avoid that. So it was another whole level. I never did that with Henry. But I learned that, like, if I did that with Zane, I made myself available. I'm up in my office. You can interrupt me. Anything happens, I'm available. I'm, not that far away. And next thing you know, like, I saw the learning was way more effective, that he was actually out there with his friend teaching something that he knew kind of, but he was learning it too. And all of a sudden that next week, he was blacksmithing by himself a lot more often. I got to where I got him comfortable with starting the forge himself. I showed him, he did it, and now he's doing it on his own. So the process of learning and becoming confident, so he was taking more risks, I'm taking some more risks, But he now he's asking about, can I get an Etsy shop, and what's my next like? Can I start selling these knives? I'm like, it gave me a mentor moment. I was like, well, we need to make them market ready. Let's do some research of what other people are selling. These aren't quite market ready. You feel good about them, but would other people buy them? We start talking business stuff. So anyway, the point being is taking more risk with him, a second son that's now interested in blacksmithing, but like it just built his confidence. I could see in just a short period of time way more. I'm sure there's a lot more that he's learned from that as well.
This is a pretty quick one, but we're not really musicians. My dad's a musician. I was a dancer, but I'm not really a musician, not really into music particularly. And Dana isn't either. But we had some kids that we got a piano from an auction thing at homeschool. Anyway, we have this piano, and we had some kids that wanted to play it. We looked into different things, but we actually settled on, I'm not very techie at all, so I would never settle on app usually, but I did like Simply Music and their philosophy, and
piano,
Simply Music, the philosophy of that. It's been around a long time, and I liked that a lot about that. So they had this app. Mostly we have 2 kids that really wanted to look into it, so we were like, well, you can dabble on that app, because I liked the app. And they have like gone from like, and we never tell them to do it. Yeah. We never like tell them to practice. Nothing. We have taken them to musical things on purpose that were pretty intentional, with choirs and with professional. Yeah. Anyway, so we have like kind of stoked that, but we pretty much have stood back a lot with that. And they both now are like, can completely play piano. We have 2 kids that can play, they can read music. They've been asked organically to do some things in church, to play for church. And so they're learning how to do it for that. So like they've gone from completely illiterate in how to read music or play piano to like, they can open up the hymn book or wherever and they can play.
About a 2-year period.
And a year and a half, 2 years, maybe 2 years. Yeah. But we're not
we're not. From Simply Piano?
Yeah, I really like that app, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
But so, yeah, and was no like tier. You always hear people like as if it has to be the path. Like, no, you got to go through the tiers and you have to fight them, but they'll thank you later. I'm like, I mean, I guess that's an option, but like, no, we didn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess it's like a different feeling of like, same with reading, writing, and arithmetic and all the things. Like, is the only path tiers and you have to force them? I mean, that is a path and it could be the right, but for us, like we have found, like, I don't think that's the only path. But like, if we believe these are beautiful tools for truth seeking, that they'll need reading, writing, and arithmetic for life, and that it's such a beautiful tool, and we really value those tools ourselves, and they see us value those tools, why would they not in their own way, if given the right fertile ground and right, realize, and to me that includes a void, maybe not on, for us we have limited screens and a lot of overuse of screens, which we feel like could counterfeit and hijack some of that natural voids that you have, and almost boredom to create learning out in other ways. But with those things, like, why wouldn't they go after those things, even the hard ones that take, so I don't know, for us that has really unfolded beautifully with our adults and children. I don't think it has to be.
One other addition to that is the benefit of large family too, is that the younger kids get inspired by the older ones very quickly. So even the 8-year-old wants to cook because they see the older ones cooking. I'm pretty sure that Zane, we had 2 older ones that were a bit older. Henry didn't take to Simply Piano, but Brinley did. When Brinley did, all of a sudden Zane, once he could, he was kind of interested too and would dabble for a little while. And then next thing you know, he's doing more and more. It's interesting to watch them inspire each other in those same ways too. As long as the space and the tools are there. And I don't let my ego get in the way and be like, I have to teach you that, or I have to, like, no, let them learn it on their own. And I'm just creating the environment where they want to on their own run with it. And I'm guiding it. I'm keeping an eye on it.
We just try not to get in the way sometimes.
Try to get out of the way even.
With our own bias. Same thing with math. Like I grew up with math. I was taught math in a very formulaic, cold way, which is usually how it's taught more in the public system. And because of my personality and I'm more that creative side, that just is too dead for me. Like, it's not exciting. So I think of math I didn't cultivate a love of math or understanding how it's connected to the universe and everything. And so I've tried to just not pass that on. Like, I feel like the best thing I can do, I'm not sure I can, I'm still reworking my own passion of that. I don't feel like I necessarily have that to give them, but I can be careful to not get in the way with my other feeling. And I have tried to like show them math and how it's really like, it's music, it's nature, it's this language that's beautiful. And And yes, there's the formulas that can be helpful too, but it's not only that.
But they can learn those when they're older if they need it,
Yeah.
High school, college age, or whenever they need it. And then if they need it, then they'll remember it. They'll learn it and remember it, yeah.
Yeah, so that has been kind of beautiful to hold that space for them and allow them to love something like that I didn't have that experience, but I was careful to not get in the way, basically, of them unfolding, because why wouldn't they love math? It's beautiful. It is all around us, and so
it's fascinating.
I just try not to pass on the trauma, basically, like pass on our baggage or whatever.
Just your biases towards a thing or towards yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's an interesting journey. And what I see happening is you're leading your life and your journey and these experiences, and your kids are like, they're watching and they're exploring, but as they go, they're going to create something different, but they're taking all of these lessons that are so universal. They're taking those along with them. So you're teaching them these through this very specific, leatherworking and blacksmithing, building an earthen home, very specific things.
Super niche.
Yes, very niche. And yet the core principles are the same throughout it all. And so it's just the vessel to learn those principles. And sometimes we find as adults, we use our families as an excuse to not do something. Well, I can't build an earthen home because I have kids. I can't do this because I have kids. But you've looked at it as a way instead to inspire your kids. We're doing this because we have kids. And then you're using that as the vessel to be able to teach them all of the core things that you want to teach them, that's just coming through your own passion. I just think it's this beautiful thing that you're taking your own passions and you're living life for your family, and you're living for them and not living because of them. I think it's a trap that oftentimes as adults we fall into, and maybe we just use it as an excuse because we don't know how. But taking as an opportunity is they're your why, and you're doing all these amazing things, and they're super niche, and they may or may not be a blacksmith when they grow up. They may or may not build an earthen home. So cool that Hannah had that insight for her youth and then decided to do it. Her parents probably never thought she'd build an earthen home when she got older, but who knows? I mean, that's just the really cool concept, and the principle is that we live and we do and we create and we follow our passions. And by living intentionally through that, we're building resilient human beings. They're learning along with us, and what they take from it are the core principles that they're going to apply through the next generation.
Yeah, I think there are why, and also they know that in some ways it's a balance of not overly making them our why too, though also where it's like they see that I have passions, Dana has passions, we have some differentiation that way that I think is really healthy. We don't have to have all the same exact things. We also have shared ones, and they have some that are not ours. Like I said, the piano is not, I can appreciate the piano, but it's not. So I think in a way, yes, we make them our why, but sort of in a way we don't, because I think that overfocus could be maybe not healthy too.
I think what she means is make your kids your why for pursuing something you love and you want to do.
Your own passion.
Yeah.
Like I'm pursuing my own passion. Partly it benefits me and my kids. Yeah. So it's for me and my kids. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can share that with them. If they don't have the same interests, that's fine too. And we can just share and support each other. And we're just
be the example, live the life that you want them to do, and bring them along in that process of the good things and the easy things and the fun things. And I'm struggling with this part or whatever. All of a sudden, make it about us and not me or you or me versus you, that stuff. Yeah, love it.
You're living without fear. Like I watch you live without fear about what other people think, or or not being able to do something, and it just doesn't matter. You just live boldly without fear. So it's really beautiful.
I love that.
Thank you.
If this podcast was helpful for you, please leave us a review and share with a friend.
Until next time, start with stories and everything else will follow.
You can learn more about our other education projects at angelselda.com and wonderwelllearning.com.